going to start by reviewing all the states learned again thus far, because you do need to know all of them, because by the end of the year, you'll need to know every single state. All right.
Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont.
Vermont. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, right? So that's Vermont.
New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware.
All right. Move that up. Move this all the way. All right. Now this is
Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia.
very good. All right. Now the Midwest region.
North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska.
Did we do this one?
Yes.
All right. Now what is it?
Missouri. Iowa, Minnesota.
All right. Of course. I didn't realize I had This is what she will do with you tomorrow. Just this. And it is very short. So I think by the time I'm back next week on Tuesday, I'm going to flip it around already. Because this one has a very unique shape to it, so a lot of people recognize it all the time anyway. So most of you already know this one, right?
Yes.
All right, so we got Texas. Right above Texas is
Oklahoma.
Beside Texas is
New Mexico.
And beside that is
Arizona.
All right, so Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arizona. Now, before we actually start, I want to give you some just fun facts about the states. So we're going to start with Arizona. It says Arizona is a state where the Grand Canyon is located. So if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, you are in Arizona. All right? And then New Mexico has a place called the Carlsbad Caverns, and it is the home of tens of thousands of bats. Right? So the Carlsbad Caverns has lots and lots of bats. And then we have Oklahoma right here. My brother actually lives in Oklahoma. And it has more man-made lakes than any other state. So in other words, God didn't make them, man made them. All right? And then last of all, Texas. Texas has more farmland than any other state. All right? So those are the Southwest region states that we're going to be learning. And there's just 4 of them, so it won't take us long to learn them. But some of you need to go back and make sure you know your Midwest. Is it a question?
I thought we were going to learn Mexico also.
Mexico is not a state in the United States. It is
A country.
and it is down here, but that's a country. Right? It's not part of the United States. It's a different country entirely, but it does tell you where it is. But that's why it's brown, because it's not part of the United States. Just like Canada. Canada is the country to the north of us. Mexico is the country to the south of us. Right? It's our neighbor. Do you have a question? If you don't have a question, then put your hand down, please. All right, let's begin reading about Abraham Lincoln. All right, Abe's childhood. On February 12th, 1809, Abe Lincoln was born in a log cabin in Kentucky. He's kinda small, people thought when they saw the baby. Do you think he will be a farmer like his pa? They asked. Abe's family was very poor. His father had a small farm, and Abe learned to work hard even as a boy. Abe and his sister Sarah only went to school for a few years, but after Abe learned to read, he realized he could learn anything he wanted to. He could learn anything he wanted if he could find a book about it. He walked many miles to borrow books from neighbors and friends. He spent much time reading the Bible. Years passed. Abe's family moved from Kentucky to Indiana, a free state that did not allow slavery. Abraham Lincoln grew to be a tall, strong man. Then his family moved again, this time to Illinois. so that's one of the Midwest states that we just learned recently, alright? So that is how Illinois became part of what we remember when we think of Abraham Lincoln. Alright. Honest Abe. Well, before I start Honest Abe, let's do the terms, the important words. They're called important words in this. Important words, important names, and important places, so everybody needs to look there and be looking at it and reading it with me, please. Confederate States of America. The name of the southern states that left the Union during the Civil War. Right? The Civil War is when the United States split into two parts, which you couldn't really, but they were two sides, and then they fought each other. And the southern states, the ones that we learn as the Southeast, they decided they didn't want to be part of the United States anymore, and they made their own country called the Confederate States of America. Right? Then we have Union, the name of the northern states during the Civil War. So the northeastern states became known as the Union. They were still what we call the United States, but they also gave themselves the name of the Union. So it was the Confederate against the Union. Civil War. The war between the Confederate States and the Union, which lasted from 1861 to 1865. So how long did it last?
4 years.
4 years. And then we have Gettysburg Address, a speech written by Abraham Lincoln after the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. All right, now you guys live very near Gettysburg, so I know that a lot of you are very familiar with Gettysburg. You've probably been there many times. Some of you may have even seen the place where they show you this is where Abraham Lincoln stood to do the Gettysburg Address. It's called the Gettysburg Address because that's where he was when he said this speech. Okay? But think about it. Children who learn this book that don't live here, like children from Florida, like when I grew up, Gettysburg Address didn't mean much. It means a lot more to me now when I hear about the Gettysburg Address because I know where Gettysburg is. I've been there. I've seen the place where they say this is where Abraham Lincoln was standing when he gave this speech. It's really cool when you actually live near parts of history. All right? Then we have important names. Read with me. Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States during the Civil War. And then we have John Wilkes Booth, the man who shot President Lincoln. Last of all, we have Springfield, Illinois, Abraham Lincoln's hometown. So it's not where he was born, but it's where he ended up. And once he was a grown man and started to establish what he did with his life, that's where he was from, Springfield, Illinois. So that's why it's very important. All right, let's go on to back to Honest Abe now. Honest Abe. Mr. Lincoln had many jobs during his life. No matter what job he was given, he was honest and hardworking. While Abe Lincoln worked as a storekeeper, he realized he had charged a lady 6 cents too much. He knew he must return this money, but the lady lived more than 2 miles away. Imagine her surprise when she opened the door to find Abe Lincoln standing there with the money he had accidentally taken. Because of stories like this, he earned the nickname Honest Abe. Top of the next page, still talking about Honest Abe. Honest Abe did his best in every job he was given, but he was not always successful. In fact, many of his businesses failed. However, Abe Lincoln would not give up. He simply tried something new. While he was a young man, he worked as a storekeeper, carpenter, farmer, soldier, and postmaster. Mr. Lincoln continued to read books and taught himself about the law. He finally became a lawyer. Many people wanted his help because they knew he was fair and honest. So being honest is important, isn't it? A family. Abraham Lincoln was shy around the ladies, but when he met Mary Todd, he knew she would someday be his wife. He and Mary were later married and had 4 sons. Mr. Lincoln loved his family very much. His children traveled with him almost everywhere he went, serving his country. I'm just checking something really quick. Yeah, okay. Abraham Lincoln decided to serve his state of Illinois in government. He did not always win elections. but he did not give up. Do you remember the name of the circuit riding preacher that he ran against twice?
Peter Cartwright.
Yeah, Peter Cartwright. And remember, Peter Cartwright beat him the first time when he ran against him, but the second time Abraham Lincoln won, right? He lost to Peter Cartwright the first time, but won the second election. More and more, the problems of our new country grew. The states from the north and the states from the south argued over each state's right to govern itself. In other words, the South believed that they had the right to own slaves, whereas the North were saying, no, you can't own slaves, that's wrong. And it really is wrong. Anyway, the Southern states began talking about forming their own country. They did not want to be a part of the United States any longer. There was talk of a civil war. And a civil war is when a country starts fighting, the people in that country start fighting each other. That is a civil war. All right, Abraham Lincoln was sad to hear the arguing. He knew the United States must remain one great nation. Many people in the North thought that he would be a good president. They chose him to run for president in the election of 1860, but many people from the South did not trust him. They knew he did not like slavery. And that's where we're going to stop.